you so much. I like the fact that you're already filling in for me. I really, really, really appreciate it. Well, I'm blown away. I am. I always get blown away every time you present your life, your company, and thank you so much. Let me say to the participants or the invitees, the floor is yours. I think I've got a lot of things to say. One of the issues that I would like Mr. Banks to talk to is in the same breath that the doctor said we should be able to make a difference in our community. Government is currently struggling with data issues. Government really struggle with data that they can be able to use. I know you can be able to tell how customers can make the company improve, So I would like you to speak to that, and how do you think, as an owner of a data analytics company, how can government and how can we also play a role? And would you consider donating some of your services to government as part of making them improve?
100%. My only challenge with government, you know how us, when we're growing up, it's all about, hey, I need tenders, I need this. That's how I switch off on mine. But if I'm coming in as a solution provider, definitely, 100%. So let me give you an example with the company we're working with called PPC Cement. PPC Africa is one of the largest company in cement in construction in Africa. And we are the forefront. We are the brains behind the company. I don't know if when you go to Pick n Pay, they ask you for that smart shopper card. I was part of the guys who developed that model in Pick n Pay. So I understand that model. That's the same model we built for PPC, for example. So the model behind smart shopper, when you walk into the counter, they ask you for a smart shopper card, but the smart shopper card have details about a customer. So when I'm looking at it as an enlarged amount of data, I understand the customer patterns. When a customer comes and buys eggs and bread in the morning, they sometimes buy milk. So I see a trend of Tembekile and her friends and others within the same bracket or similar age or similar region doing the same thing. So now when I do the marketing, I'm directing it to the people that I know already. They're interested to that. So it's called market basket analysis. And so I can do market basket, I can do predictive modeling. It's based on the sales that is coming in. I can determine how much or how far can we do more? What else can we give customers? What else can we give people? That's what we're doing with that. So with what we did for PPC, we built a platform. It's an online platform. It's called Show Rewards. So because PPC it's a manufacturing company, they don't have a direct relationship with the customer, but they supply their products to Cashbuild, Buco, CTM, and them. So a customer buys a cement from Cashbuild and they load the receipt on that platform, either on the app or on the web that we have developed for PPC. And when they load that receipt, it tells her that Tembekile from Limpopo, she bought 500 bags of cement from PPC, and we give her 150 per bag. I don't know how much is that, but because this model is targeting constructors and the WHBO and the Ataberes who buy a large amount of cement, in a month's time, you can find that PPC is giving away a lot of money to give out to their customers for rewards, which means we are managing the large corporations' money. That's just another money that we're managing, not what they pay us for what we do. So already, that's a model that I can bring to government. It's not customers in this case, but it's general public, members of the, she calls them members of the parliament and the members of the public. So I've learned that from the doctor. So I would bring analytics, a model to build to IDs and other stuff. But what we do, we would build a data structure, architecture that allows us to understand our people and where most of the higher income earners are found, what are they doing. We'll find most of the things that will give us more data. But once we understand this, let's now start to advise or talk to our people directly and inform our people in other opportunities that they can take. let's start individually targeting people who are doing something that we can help them grow. Business like mine, my business is it never depended on the government, but we have already 20 employees, expecting 26 employees by end of September without any support. And I'm saying that by the end of December, we are 40. So in the next year, it's just up to us whether we want to be listed by the end of financial year this year. So if I go and be listed, I'm already, we're doing numbers. So, but I'm thinking like, if I had to funding when I was starting, I wouldn't have used it well. I probably would have used that money to do something else, probably because I don't have experience. So government, through that system that we would have built or how we would be helping the government, we will now start to target people who have potential to build something in farming, to build something in consulting, to build something, and we start empowering them, because if we empower them, we are helping more people to get employed. Yes, a solution to economic growth is entrepreneurship. So part of what I learned in statistics, I majored in econometrics and some actuarial. So what I picked up was entrepreneurship is the solution to economic growth. The more we empower entrepreneurs and other guys who are trying, we are helping the community, and we are reducing dependency. When we increase dependency and we give out more funding and more whatever, we are increasing laziness, and we are increasing tax for those who work harder. So how about we come in as data scientists, build systems that helps our government to understand how they can help the community strategically, not just thumb sucking, because that's what we're doing for large corporations. Some of these large corporations, you'll be surprised that they are still doing thumb sucking to do marketing or to talk to the people, to talk to their customer. And I look at the large corporations that we work with, like the PPC, the Old Mutual, the TransUnion, the Same Adapt IT. I look at all these guys as government because they are very successful and they are huge. They are billion-brand companies. So I look at them as a government. So if I'm able to work with such companies and we are helping them increase their turnover, increase their monies, we can definitely come to government, offer our service, and strategically help where we understand. Maybe we can start from the economic point of view and we try and help using data somewhere there. Absolutely, yeah. I hope I answered most of the questions.
Yes, you did. I'm actually asking the participant to also raise their hands, but in the meantime, I'll be asking one of the questions to Dr. Gondwe. The dependency in government for me actually comes in where grants are given to people without them working for it. In the previous session last week, we had the Vice Chancellor of Free State, the Xhoxha branch, and she was saying that, we were saying actually that giving them grants is okay, but why don't we give them something to work or to do, clean the rivers, clean the streets before they get these grants? Because that is one of the reasons that is making them to, you know, to misuse the money, if one can call it that, as much as they need the money. But to what extent are we going to continue giving them money for something that they didn't work for? Now there's is it 350 that people are going to get? There are people who may be getting this money who are probably working elsewhere, which is not probably government. And because this is not on record, that is data again, people do get this 350. So how do we, as you said, that we need to work for, like, sort of contribute towards our community, make sure that whatever that we are doing is actually assisting, becoming activists. I think that is the word you used. How do we become activists and not getting money for free, or those who get it? Because I think it's easy for us to say, because some of us are getting a salary, but those who do not get a salary, how do we make sure that they work hard, like Mr. Banks was saying, they work hard for these things? before they get the very same 350, rather than just standing in a queue for days and days and get the money and still complain. There's another hand. Maybe I can wait for the gentleman to ask the question. Then we can take both, just in case it's also yours. Just park mine there, Doctor. Mr. Nkuna, you are on. The floor is yours.
Okay, am I audible enough?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay, thanks, Chair. Good evening to the doctor there, Dr. Gondwe and Mr. Banks and fellow participants. Yeah, let me say yeah, I've just been blown away by the presentation of the two guest speakers there. Maybe it's more of a comment than a question. The facilitator there has taken most of what I wanted to comment on, because apparently I'll direct this to Dr. Gondwe there as a member of parliament. I know she may not be in the relevant portfolio committee, but because she's a member of parliament, I will raise this nonetheless. We have the issue of NYDA. I know a lot of good business people who have applied to be in the board of NYDA, but apparently they were not being considered for, they believe, lack of political connectivity. They're not connected to any political party. I'm of the view that the board of that institution, if properly utilized, can be a serious catalyst for change in our country, simply because they will ensure that our youth are involved in entrepreneurial skills, they will start to be involved in work activities that will translate to other business opportunities for other youth in our country. Do you think, the doctor, are we not selling ourselves short when, for a board as serious as NYNDA, if you look at our economic situation, when members of parliament are considering the political affiliation of a potential board member, are we doing justice to the youth of this country if we are to consider political affiliation other than competence of a potential board member? Well, it could be an allegation that they are not being considered for simply because of their political affiliation. But if you look at some of the candidates or the competence or the career, the CV of some of the people that are being considered vis-a-vis the people that I know, people who have been very active in business, people who are playing serious role in our society being disregarded. I wonder what the view of the good doctor will be in this on this issue, but it has been a nice and well informative presentation, and it has maybe awakened the beast in me. Thank you very much, Chair.
Hi, Tembi, can I go ahead?
Yes, you can.
All right, thank you very much. Let me start, actually, before I start answering the questions, let me just commend Mr. Banks, as you call him. You know, Mr. Banks, you'll be surprised to know that if you had to ask my high school teacher if I was the student who'd have the PhD today and be a member of parliament, she'd probably say no, because I was not a strong student at high school. But when I got to university, something just, and because, teachers have such great powers. They can either make you or break you. And so, I take what you're saying, that you were not always the brightest, and I think my emphasizing that getting good results is important was just to show that sometimes, we have aspirations to be somewhere, to be with a certain company. And you can probably attest to that fact, that Accenture will not take you unless you are an A student or, and that type of thing. So it's just to remind people that sometimes you can't expect to work at Accenture if you've not met, the criteria in terms of the marks. You get my point. So it was just to emphasize that, and to also just tell you that I was not the top student in matric, for example, and I wasn't the one. If you had asked my teacher, she would probably say, I'm not that one, because I was shy. I did not like speaking in public. And I'm, even to this day, I don't like media attention. It's just that it comes with the job, and I don't really, how can I say, I was very happy when I was in the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, because we weren't allowed to talk. We have an oath of secrecy. So because I was having and when they removed me now to public service and administration, and one of my good friends is actually on the platform, Julius Mwebe. He's the content advisor of that committee. He will tell you, I'm now the one who talks the most on that committee.
You found yourself.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Banks, that's exactly it. You find yourself. And it takes a lot. And I like the fact that you say you come from nothing. And there are a lot of people who've defied the odds to be where they are, right now. I think it was day before yesterday, and just to branch off, because now we're engaging informally here. I was watching a documentary about Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. If you have time, just read a bit about him, and you'll realize that he was also not the one that everybody thought, would be president one day. And one day he just blew up like that. So I do believe that there's a time where you will come out and you find yourself, and Mr. Banks, well done. I wish you could even come and speak in one of the portfolio committees, so that people can know, for the young people like you out there who are making it big and making an impact. And I like the fact that you say, yes, you came through NASFAS and everything. And that's why I said that we have to depend on government. Government owes us obligations as citizens. But an over-dependence or an unhealthy dependence, becomes problematic. So, I love the fact that you got a government, but I also always tell people that government is not the only one that offers funding and scholarships. As well as I know, that there are companies that actually, I was right when I said that they actually recruit way in advance, and they recruit at university before you're finished and the like, and we could go on and on. But I just want to take my hat off, and congratulate you. You are really an example, and I really want your details, because I want to rave a bit about you to some of my colleagues.
I went to your LinkedIn and I added you because I realized there's so much to learn.
Oh, okay. I'm not really active on LinkedIn, but you can send me a friend.
That's where you can talk to our people.
Yeah. Anyway, Tembi, to answer your question, let me start with the 350 grant. I know you indicated before I started that some people had said they'd seen me on Morning Live and Newsroom Africa, etc. And that's because I once asked a question around the fact that how many public servants had actually applied for this grant, this 350 grant. And the response that came was that it was close to 40,000. So you are right in saying that some people that actually are going to, apply for this grant will not deserve it, number one. And number two, I do agree that the grant system is unsustainable. As I indicated, our fiscus is under a lot of pressure. Our economy is not growing as fast as it should be. And so I don't know how long we'll be able to pay out grants. And I think that's why a conversation such as the one that we're having right now is very important. And I wish there was a way, we could be having a lot more of these conversations, so that people, maybe there's a Mr. Banks amongst out there still waiting to to find himself and find out, and figure out what his niche is, because the grant system is unsustainable, to be honest with you. And I think I think it was Mr. Banks who mentioned that at some point it increases laziness, and also it imposes a burden on those that are paying taxes. Because, now if you earn $1 million, you are taxed 40% of that income. And you will take home only 60% of it. And after deductions and whatever, it will be nothing, So now when you earn $1 million, you're not earning a lot, because, a large chunk of that money goes towards, paying taxes. And those taxes are used to ensure that people get grants and the like. You know what? I think, a way of winning people out of this dependency and this grant system would be to have an audit of who is receiving these grants. Look at the age group. Because if someone is able-bodied and they're able to go and look for a job, then we need to put pressure on those people to go and look for jobs and start finding ways to ensure that they can generate that money. Because, even when you look at the amount of the grant, it's not a lot of money. But, people are depending on it, and some have even resorted to corrupt ways and means of getting that money, you hear stories when we go on oversight, you hear stories of someone just adopting children so that they can get the money for the grant, and not even looking after those children. So, I'm not saying, look, the grant was introduced to address the inequalities we spoke about. There was a realization on government that our people, had been left out of being able to generate their own wealth and their own income. But what has happened is that if you depend on this grant, and what exactly are you going to leave your children? And that's why what Mr. Banks said, that it's important for us to get into the mode of creating or enabling our people to create generational wealth for themselves, and for their children, because it's you get the grant month to month, and then what, so I think Thembi, you're right. We need to put pressure on people that are able to go out and look for a job, and actively look for a job and get out of receiving a grant, where that is possible. I hope that's answered your question, Thembi. Just correct me if I've left anything out. And with respect to that 350 grant, that one is not a permanent grant. And remember, now it's been introduced in response to the unrest and, of course, the pandemic, because, the pandemic also affected a lot of businesses and a lot of livelihoods. So it was intended as a temporary relief, so it's not something that is going to, carry on, indefinitely. But I do agree with you that, the grant system is unsustainable, and at some point we have to really look at winning people out of relying solely on the grant. And to be honest with you, sometimes you'll be shocked that someone will tell you that I'm on a grant, but they're putting on Nikes, and you ask yourself, but how is that possible? But then where do you get the money for such fancy shoes and the like? So sometimes I'm not entirely sure, and I tend to agree that sometimes the people that are intended to really benefit from this grant are not benefiting from. And then Mr. Nkuna, you asked about the NYDA. I don't know if you're aware that the process had to be restarted because the governing party, it emerged that they had a preferred candidate. And then, the DA blew the whistle on this, and the process had to be restarted. And I do agree that competence has to prevail over political affiliation. The NYDA is not a political organization or a political entity. it belongs to government. And unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes with these these government institutions. They are used and their businesses conducted as if they were political entities or institutions, when in actual fact, they are not. And so I do share the sentiments that, sometimes, yes, competent people are overlooked, and then, but you see, the ANC's got numbers when it comes to, these committees that appoint. So they use those numbers, and in most cases they're able to get away with, appointing someone that they feel should be appointed, and it's wrong. It's wrong because competence has to count, and the value that a person can bring. And I do agree that the NYDA can be used as a very effective tool for encouraging entrepreneurship, especially amongst the young people, and obviously then win people out of depending on government, and even boost the economy if it's used for its rightful purposes, and it's intended to benefit everybody, irrespective of your political affiliation. And so I do share your sentiments, and this is something that the DA has raised and other parties have raised to say, but the way the appointments are being made, it's like sometimes they even have a candidate in mind before they actually make the appointment, but I think what Parliament is trying to do is to make the interviews transparent and the like. But as I indicated, even where you see the interviews and the interviews are aired, because the governing party has numbers, they will use those numbers to make sure that their preferred candidate is then appointed.
Okay.
Nkuna, are you satisfied with my answer?
Yeah, we'll give him.
Yes, I am.
There's another hand, Vuyiswa.
Oh, good afternoon. Is it afternoon or evening? Yeah. Doctor and Mr. Banks. I've got a question for Doctor. In fact, it's not a question, perhaps it's a comment that I hear you said that people must not benefit, must not depend on the 350. People must be entrepreneurs. But I believe that what is important is the fact that if you are looking at the rural children from rural areas, you cannot say those people must know where the bursaries are, because the information, they don't have an access on information. I think as a members of parliament, you need to ensure that there's an access to information to those children that are in rural areas specifically, and others in the township. There are people who really need bursaries, but they don't know where to go for the information. And I think it's our responsibility, to all of us who have an access to information, to share the information, share what you have. If you've got a bursary information, share it. If you've got jobs, share it. If you've got entrepreneur information, share it. And I think that will empower our community. If you go to, I will also say to Mr. Banks, is it Banks? I don't know whether it's Mr. Banks.
Banks.
Bank, okay, Mr. Bank.
Banks, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Bank. I'm inspired. I must say that I'm inspired about the information. It's more powerful that you have given us this information. And I'm really inspired. And I wanted to say that now people like myself have been revived in the initiatives and ideas that they have in their mind. And yeah, sometimes it's really that that you've got those ideas, but you are scared to start, And what I wanted to ask you, how do you push yourself to start? And you know that you can start, but you don't know when, how can you start? And it's not about, I understand it's not about money. It's about taking your idea to be up there. How do you start it as an entrepreneur? I know that I grew up from a mother used to say to the people, I'm passionate in selling everything, because I grew up from a family where my mom used to sell veg and fruits in the market, you know, in the olden days, selling meat for us to go to school. But I'm passionate, but the start, that is that is what I wanted, that skill of starting, how you go about, because we've got ideas, but it's difficult to start. Thank you, doctor, and thank you, Mr. Banks. Thanks.
Okay, before they respond, is there any other person who would like to ask a question or a comment? Actually, Vuiswa took one of the comments I wanted to make, that not so many people are exposed to information that we probably might be, you know, be accessing ourselves. You also spoke about, you know, in Nigeria where people are selling in the wee hours of the morning. There's a market in Venda called Chakuma, if I'm not mistaken. They sell 24/7. You go there 3 a.m. in the morning, passing by, going to Joburg, you'll find them selling. They rotate, but government does not replicate these models to make sure that they are actually done in other areas. With regard to, you know, being entrepreneurs, last week we spoke with the professor that people are asked to develop business plans by government institutions, for instance, or even banks, and they don't even know how to develop those what do you call it, business plans. Like Vuiswa said, they have ideas, but putting them on paper and making them, you know, something that can be utilized in order for them to access funding, if ever they want to access funding, it's not user-friendly for them. How can we, as those who are knowledgeable or those who have access to this thing, over and above sharing information, make sure that this information is actually, you know, disseminated down to those who they get assisted? I mean, the business plan is supposed to be developed in English, and the person may not even be well conversant with how to write anything in English. Can I take two hands, because I can see people are now getting so warmed up, and this is what happened usually during our sessions towards the end. I'll take Kateko and then Noktula, but please pack those questions. There's also an appreciation message from Dr. Makubele, has already left because he's going to another engagement of the two presentations. Kateko and Noktula, please raise your comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, colleagues. This is Mikateko. I'm just inspired. Mine is not a question per se. I'm just inspired by the presentation from Dr. Nmes.
Thanks.
Banks, yes.
Banks as in bank, and you add S at the end.
Banks, yeah. I'm very much inspired, and I wanted to say, keep up the good work. And also, if as women, because this month is our month, if we can see that and support each other and have that vision, I think we can go far. That's what that is my comment. And also to say that I appreciate the presentations and the invitation. I have learned a lot today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mikateko. I share the sentiment that is actually one of the reasons I said to myself, I have to get Dr. Gondwe, because I read through, I mean, the first time I spoke to her, she was like very sweet and all. I'm like, oh, okay. But as I was looking for people that can speak to them, like, this is one person that I would like to have I think you have pushed the boundaries, becoming the first Black person in University of Stellenbosch to have a doctorate. I mean, that says to us, this thing is doable. So yeah, we'll do the thanks and the accolade stuff afterwards. Noktula.
Good evening, everyone.
Your name.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Gosh, I'm so frustrated. I kept on breaking when the first speaker was talking. I just got cut off, and unfortunately, the second speaker did get some stuff that he was relating to. And I just want to congratulate both of them for being able to achieve what they've achieved without depending on anything, but working on their way up. And I'm listening to the comments now and questions. Then those are the ones that are giving me guidance to know what was the presentation, especially from the first speaker. And I'm asking myself, why can't we have such people going around presenting to young ones? And even especially at schools where you'll find that there's too much high teenage pregnancy. Some people, like the first speaker was mentioning the issue of the grant. Some people are just getting pregnant because there is a grant. And if you can go visit offices of SASSA, you can see someone is less than 30 years of age, but she's the mother to 7 children because of the social grant, of which, like she mentioned earlier on, that that's not something that is sustainable. One day it will be stopped, and then what do you do with the 7 children because you are depending on government? So these are, I'm inspired. I'm very inspired, and I wish we can do something about educating, because someone cannot be only in the desk, or our communities itself, like the way she was saying in the beginning, that you have to be someone who is assisting, maybe assist the counselor or in the community, be there so that you can help. Such education, they can help, and they are inspiring as well, because some people, they think government can do everything, because even during the time of unrest, you see elder people who are supposed to be exemplary to the children, but they were uttering words like, I'm hungry, I don't have anything, but someone's got hands. Maybe there's a yard, even a big yard at home. You can put spinach, but you are waiting for a moment where there is an unrest. And now again, they don't have food because that food was already collected by the police. So I'm not sure what can we do to our society in terms of education, especially Dr. Banks going rounds, because people, they want to do business just to earn profit. They want quick ways to earn it. They don't know how to plan. And then at the end of the day, you know that I have a business, this is what I'm achieving, through thick and thin, whether it's successful, but you know what is your goal. So some people, everyone wants to do a business plan, everyone wants to do tender with government. And that's why you see the high rate even of tender corruptions and stuff like that, because people are desperate. And you are just doing it for the sake of doing something, but you don't have even a calling of that business you want to do, but as long as you are going to get something. So people, they need education, and people like you, especially being a man, and I think we can go far, and to especially educate the young men as well, because sometimes we might say it's the issue of 50-50. Yes, I respect that women are powerful, because I know you are always talking too much when it comes to women empowerment. But the people who are more into drugs, people who are more paras on the road are male people. So it's become more relevant again when you see a man who is standing in front of them and telling them that life is not like this, but you can do something like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Maybe before you respond, anybody else? We're now closing. I'll ask Mr. Banks to speak first, and then Dr. You'll be the one to wrap up everything. This is actually a mountain. It's a huge elephant for us to deal with.
Yeah.
I just want you to speak to also the issue of, where's that note that I wrote? They spoke about access to information, rural children also having to be looked into, high teenage pregnancy, educating people, enabling our people to be able to generate income. Geez, I've lost that comment, and it's quite important. But as you speak, issues of how can we sort of find a way of creating that which African countries are capable of doing. These people come from their own countries. They don't come here and look for a job. When they arrive here, they look for a place where they can start a business. Why is it that we don't do it like that? The same way you did. You may have looked for a job once or twice. You always tell us about the fact that you used to go with your mother and sell fruits at like in trains and all that. That was instilled in you from the beginning. I think also with you, Doctor, when you say your mother will be like, go to work and so that you can get pocket money to go back to school. What is it that we can do? Because our platform is not necessarily really about a talk show. It's to identify a way in which we can contribute towards specific organization and stakeholders and submit information that says to them, this is how we think you can be able to approach specific challenges. I've already engaged with some social workers who approached me, and I've linked them with the Department of Social Development in the province, which is going to assist them to start their own practice. So that is something that we're actually working towards. So I would want you to sort of touch on that, because I think the people who will listen to this and that are currently on the platform will find a way of making sure that they play their part in being activists, so that we can change. I know Vuiswa is one of the activists, so that we can change the mindset of wanting to have everything given to us for free. I think we are good at getting freebies. Tebogo, you cannot just, keep quiet like that until we go. I'm going to expose you. But anyway, yeah, please respond and also guide, and then the doctor will
Okay.
last. Thanks.
Well, this turned out to be the most amazing session. Loved it, and I'm learning. I just want to thank you for providing this platform. Are we transforming? I think from here, the number of percent who learned, they have been transformed, and you are on a journey to transform more of us. So thank you. I'm going to start with Vuiswa. How do we start? I know how hard it is, right? When you are earning already, you've got some debts already, that you're driving nice cars probably, and you already have that bond, and you're like, how do I quit here? And how do I start? There isn't a formula to this thing, but what is there is the courage that you can do. So what I can say is, you don't really jump off and then you jump in. Maybe from what you're doing already, what others are doing as they still work, you get time after work. If you knock off at 4, from 5 to 7, you are doing that which you believe is your passion for a year. And as you do it, as you gain courage, because it's a long shot, there's a lot of failure in this thing. And I hear a lot about business plan, but you can't plan this when you're outside. When you get inside, you realize everything you wrote in that plan doesn't work, nothing. None of the plans that I don't, let me not go with my theories, but I believe a business plan changes every day. It's continuously changing depending on the growth, depending on the adjustments until you get the model right. When you got the model right, then it works. But so I would say there isn't a perfect business plan for you to start with when you are still at work. But what you can do, ignore the business plan, ignore everything. What are you called to do here on earth? What's your assignment? If your assignment is to preach, start preaching one by one. As you preach one by one, it's gonna grow. I don't know if you know Dr. Sibi. Dr. Sibi is just passed on, but he was a doctor, and he's one of the few guys who healed people with HIV and AIDS. And government tried to, in the US, try to make sure that he's not known, that he can heal this thing. And he kept on saying the main disease is mucus. This guy healed so many people with traditional knowledge, traditional herbs. And it came from traditional, like his experience, his talent. So you can have a raw talent that you know you have it. But until you start, nobody will know you. But as soon as you start and you are Dr. Sibi, more people will come. As soon as you heal one person, the second one will come. Until now you have 3, 5, 6, 7 patients every day. Now you can start thinking, how can I quit, and start focusing on this thing daily. Because sometimes when you are doing this, you realize that it doesn't really work. Maybe what you were seeing was the 5% of what you're about to become. Maybe you are a powerhouse and you're only seeing yourself as a coach. But as a coach is like what I'm doing now. If I saw myself as a coach, I wouldn't have made it, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a visionary. So it's like you have to apply something to become that. And the only time you realize that you are is when you are on the field. So start by something that you believe is your talent and build from there. I like what Noktula said about helping people with planning. I think a lot of Black business is known for failing and for dependency. We are known for tenders, we are known for funding. I just didn't want to be part of that. I know that it can be helpful and you can benefit from it, but I didn't want to be part of that queue. For me, it meant another failure. So I don't know, but what I can say is, let's start teaching ourselves to provide solution. When you are solving something, word of mouth goes around and you become, and we have to be patient. So on our side, we have to continue teaching and educating, but you have to realize we're in the position I'm in. I'm here 9 to 9 because I have to get this model work. I'm employing guys from Vets, boys from Tax, people from Stellenbosch, right? I want to go out and speak. That's why I'm available for such sessions. But at the same time, I need to get this model right, because these guys are depending on me as well. So as much as I want to go out, I've got limitation. But what I won't stop for me is these sessions, especially online. Maybe I do a lot of talks as well. If you go on my LinkedIn, you can see I'm educating people every day and I'm speaking raw knowledge. So I'm hoping I'm impacting others. But when it comes to planning and helping others with this, I think it's part of this continuous of this platform like this, to continue educating people that you can't really do hands to mouth business. We are into long term, you know. This is not that one man show business. It's about a team. It's about building a legacy for everyone else to benefit from it. Not about you. I see a lot of, that's why I don't like media things, because a lot of media people get 100,000 and then all of a sudden they are rich because they can afford a Gucci, or they get 1 million, then they buy a Viano with 900,000. The next thing, they are the richest people. When you look at me, I don't even have a car. My wife have a car. I don't. I'm here. If I'm going home, I'm using an Uber. But a person who doesn't, a person who's still working and probably earning 700,000 drives a Mercedes-Benz, drives a Range Rover. And when they look at me, they think I'm poor. And I don't mind it, but think about it. How many employees do I have? I don't have to prove that I've got money or what. But the people without, people who don't, people who are doing this once-off projects, tenders for whatever, they are the ones who want to constantly, who are failing with planning, with growth. They are thinking for today and there's no growth in that. So we need to constantly educate and play our part. You mentioned about me coming up as an entrepreneur. From the young age, I used to go with my mother, sell at a train station. Sometimes I used to go alone. I used to sell in front of Spa. I was privileged to stay in a small town, but I was also a disadvantage because everyone around me is affording. I can't afford. But I was humble enough to know that I need to help my family, my mother survive in this thing. So I was selling day in and day out. I don't really like selling to like that basic survivalist business, but it's a core contribution to entrepreneurship. It woke me up. Entrepreneurship is known for poverty, people, especially basic survivalist entrepreneurship is known for poor people. But I've learned there that the business is the same. It's just there are different categories that you are targeting. At that time, those ones are targeting that lower LSM market, but the heart, the mindset, the drive is the same in business. You just need to expand it. So we have to continue educating people to think long term and think bigger. So to them to expand their business. I think that's the solution. There's more, but yeah, for the sake of time.
Thank you so much. Before you speak, Doc, there's a hand. People are getting warm up. Tebogo, sorry for putting you on the spot. You can speak.
Good evening, Dr. and Mr. Banks. Thank you very much for this session, and it's, as always, it's very, very informative, and yeah, we are challenged to think beyond. I'm very, very encouraged by Mr. Banks and the journey that he went through, and in ensuring that he succeeds, he reaches his goals, and he continues to strive for more. So that is very, very encouraging. And I wish many, like Noktula said, many young people could be able to see you and see your journey and get motivation from that. Dr. Gondwe, thank you very much for giving us a perspective of how the government approaches things, how we as citizens should be responsible for our well-being, and how we should approach in striving towards getting like self-reliant, if I can put that word. As Tembi was calling me out, I was busy typing a message here, just reflecting on what the doctor said and what Mr. Banks said. And I actually believe emphasis was made on the grants and how they are not sustainable. And I also think that some of the policies that we have, they are also advocating for citizens to be reliant on the state. I was just busy typing that BEE policy. It's the one that came into my mind. That it actually makes us to be reliant on the state in terms of doing business. Most people believe that if they go into business, they'll go into tendering and with the state, and they'll get that once project, and after that they don't have a plan. And also it's flawed in a way, because we know, even though the record might be the on paper it might be different, but we know the approach is that in order for you to get a particular project, you need to be connected to whoever or whatever, so that you can get that. So I think we also need to look into moving away from such policies, so that we get to think out of the box, to try to take the trajectories that the trajectory that Mr. Banks took, and encourage our younger people to understand that when we go to school, we're not only going to school to look for a job. Looking for a job should be a means to an end, wherein they're encouraged to come up with innovative ideas or creative ideas to participate in the sustainability of our economy. Doctor, earlier in your presentation, you indicated that you were part of you are still part of the committee that looks into amending Section 25
yes.
of the Constitution.
Yes.
with that one as well, my worry is that I'm not against it personally, it's my personal view. My worry is that since we are such, we currently, I believe that we are we are reliant to the state. We rely on the state to get our ideas. When we want food, the state must provide. We look to the state for most of the things. So my worry with that is if we give land to the people prematurely, we would have situations wherein we will take a good land and misuse it. We have seen it already so far with other aspects of lands which were taken, and they were like, it's a agricultural land, but it was converted into a residential area and all that. So I'm not sure if I have a question or if it's a comment that I want to make, but I would like to get your view on this one, because how are we going to make sure that when we people get the land or get other resources that are owned by the state, and we want people to have them, how are we going to make sure that we use those things positively to create a sustainable living? Because my worry is that we don't have our economy in our hands. We are still relying on other factors so that they can contribute positively in our economy and so that we can benefit from that. So how do we make sure that we contribute positively within our economy without involving connections and all that? If you make that land change, if you give land to the people, is government going to ensure that people are utilizing those in order to create a sustainable improvement within our living arrangements? And yeah, basically that is that. Thank you very much. Let me talk too much because my mind is just running fast right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Doctor, I think we have pumped you with so many for you to sum up as we close. Yeah, we should be activists and be responsible, be self-reliant, teach ourselves to become solutions. Let our visions be long-term. Don't do things to prove. Connections should not be the order of the day. The policies are actually reliant. But it's something that I think you should look into. I was saying that the policies, as Tebogo was saying, are making us to be reliant on the state, even when we are supposed to be not reliant. So please try to sum up so that we can be able to, yeah, we would actually need you back one way or the other, because there's a lot of things that we would like to engage with you. But
asking the wrong person to sum up, because I want to be clear when I respond. So just allow me, I will not take up a lot of time when I respond. I've been noting the questions that have been asked. But I want to get clarity from a question asked by Vuiso. She was saying that I said grants are not sustainable, and I'm not moving away from that. They are not sustainable. I do realize that there is a great need for, for grants. But the point I'm trying to make, I'm not saying people should not get them. I'm just saying they're not sustainable. So we should move as a country towards winning people out of the grant system so that they find ways in which they can sustain themselves outside of government help. So I want to make that very clear. And I think Mr. Banks also made that point when he said that, in fact, they encourage laziness and they place a burden on those of us that are paying taxes, and that we cannot run away from. But I am not saying that the grant system should be scrapped totally. And that's why I said, maybe let's do an audit. And I'm glad to hear that Nokuthula also touched on this when I said do an audit and find out who is really in need of those grants? Are the people that are receiving them really deserving of those grants? If you've got someone who's able-bodied, somebody who's able to go out there and earn a living and earn a livelihood and find a job, then really to ease the burden on government in terms of being able to pay out these grants, then we need to look at ways of weaning some people off the grant system. And I'm not saying all people. I do realize there is a need, especially in the rural areas. In fact, even in the urban areas, when I started my presentation, I mentioned the fact that now you've got food insecurity, not only in the rural areas, but in the urban areas. You've even got malnutrition amongst children in the urban areas because they found that children are not eating properly, in terms of their, their nutritional needs, even in urban areas. So food insecurity is right across, and that's why I was encouraging that where people can, they should start their own vegetable gardens and maybe even look at selling their vegetables. And then you mentioned something about access to information, and I want to challenge you. I was just talking about active citizenry. What have you done to ensure that people in the rural areas have access to information? This is not something that should lie only within the purview of government. It's up to you as an individual. Let's say, there's an area somewhere there, and I'm going to give an area where I've been to. I went to Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape. To go there, you need a 4x4 because the roads there are just something else. And even then, I remember the time that we went there, we were told if it's raining, we're not going to be able to go there into certain areas. And an ambulance to go there, it's virtually, the roads are just terrible, and you find people in such deep rural areas. And how do you and I ensure that they have access to information? So much so that you find that even government officials, when we went there to check on what they had done, to follow up on undertakings that they had made, we found that little had been done because of the access to those areas. So it's up to you and me, and I want to challenge you as well to help us where we have fallen short as government in terms of trying to ensure that people in the rural areas have access to information. And that can be done in a number of ways, either posting that information to them or arranging for and hold workshops and, around sensitizing people there around information and the like. And, in those areas, you even find that there's no signal for even a cell phone. I remember just to be able to, I went to one area there in the Eastern Cape, they had no signal. Just to be able to send a report, I had to drive 15 kilometers outside of that area. So you find that areas do not have access to. So I think I'm just challenging you to also give us the solutions. We don't have all the answers. And I indicated that at the beginning, during the course of my presentation, that not all the solutions lie with government, but we would appreciate input. So when you interact with someone like me, you say, hey, doctor, in this and this area, what have you? Then I can try my best to connect you to the MP who's responsible. And remember, there are MPs that are assigned constituencies. So if you know of a rural area that is in need of, a particular service, or there is a lack of, it's upon you as a citizen to contact that relevant MP and say, what, MP, this is your constituency. There's no information there around there, or people need information around this issue or that issue. So it's upon you and me. That's why I said, get to know your ward councillor, get to know your MP, because those are the people that have been elected to look after those areas. So, and ensure that you can also, empower them in being responsive to the needs, because we will never know there is a need unless you sensitize us to the fact that there is a need. So it's very important that you make it a point that you get to know who's in charge of a particular constituency or a particular area, bring it to our attention. And there are also portfolio committees that you can write to. Do you know that you can submit a petition to a portfolio committee and say, we have a need here, whatever, can you look at it? And now what Parliament is moving towards is where each portfolio committee has to deal with petitions and ensure that the issues that are raised in those petitions are addressed. And I want to thank you very much for sharing me for sharing with me, Tembi, around Chakuma, that market that you mentioned in Venda, and the fact that we could replicate these models of markets that operate right through. I mean, even when you go into the Western world, in America, shops are open at 3 a.m. You can go and do your grocery shopping. And people also like China time. If they can tell you, you know, maybe we should encourage our people to also look at going the extra mile. You know, Mr. Banks has indicated that he's in his office from 9 to 9. Hard work has never killed anybody. And in order to get somewhere, you need to really work hard and put in the effort, you know? And so thank you for sharing this idea with me. And so, you know, and Tembi, I want to challenge you. To people, you know people, I mean, you know people like me and whatever. Let us know some of these issues, write to us if you have to. Then we are forced then to make sure that they are referred to the correct committees and we can speak to the right people. Sometimes we even know, I know the chairpersons of, I know various ministers and the like. You can use me to bring, you know, an issue to the attention of a certain minister and whatever, because we know each other, we talk to one another, they report to us, we even call one another. So sometimes it's a matter of letting us know what this is. But we also, you know, it's always nice when someone can come to us with a problem, but also provide a solution. As I indicated, some of these solutions lie within your hands as ordinary citizens. They lie within your hands and you can do something about it. You know, somebody will say, there is no, that school does not have a toilet or does not have whatever. But this person knows somebody else with a plumbing company that perhaps can donate toilets and ensure that they install toilets. You know, people don't know how much power they have. And some people are so connected. And, you know, it's important that we start using those connections positively, because as I indicated, government is honestly very stretched at the moment. And then there was a comment around business plans. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, it's so quiet. I'm even wondering, am I speaking to myself? And then someone made a comment about business plans. But people don't know how to develop business plans and the like. And you know what? You and I probably know somebody who's done a business plan before. You have friends, you have people, you know people that are in business. Instead of relying on government to workshop people and maybe to hold sessions and whatever. And remember, you know, government, even I think Mr. Banks can attest to this fact, government is well known for paying late. Yes, we have this 30-day payment requirement, but I serve on public service, but I tell you the number of times we've had to call government departments, you know, before us to say, but why are you not paying suppliers and service providers within the 30-day requirement? Everything is so protracted and sometimes there's a lot of red tape. You must get, there's a 3-tender system, no. So, you know, some of these things, honestly, we have the power to do something about. You know, do you know someone who's done well, who's come up with or knows how to draft a business plan, and they can go and offer, you know, a class. You put together a few entrepreneurs in your community, even if it's 4. You know, if you capacitate 4 people, those 4 people will go and capacitate another 4 people, and so on. And so there's a chain reaction, and there's a ripple effect in terms of the offer, you know, the help that we're able to offer. And just to correct you, Tembi, I was the first African woman to receive a PhD in law from the Mercantile Law Department. So not necessarily from Stellenbosch University, but from a particular department in the university.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to correct that before everybody goes and raves about me elsewhere and the information is wrong. And Nokutula, thank you very much. You know, about presenting at schools. My dear, I'm passionate about empowering others. I am because you are. My strengths can be your weaknesses. My weaknesses can be, you know, yours. We can learn from each other. Even when I come, you know what, you think you can learn a lot from us. We probably can learn a lot from you too. And as I indicated, you know, Mr. Banks indicated that, you know, the issue of a calling. a calling is very important. You know, people have this head mentality. We are talking about tenders here where, you know, everybody's thinking I can only become an entrepreneur if I have a tender and that type of thing. But people like Mr. Banks have shown that you can think outside the box. And this is what I said also during the course of my presentation, that we need to challenge ourselves and get into professions or get into spaces that we wouldn't typically think of getting into. You know, let's think outside of the box, challenge ourselves, you know, because your typical professions, your typical way of doing things is really has become outdated. And now innovation and new ways of thinking and doing things are really at the fore of success in the world now, you know. And I'm sure Mr. Banks can attest to that. The fact that we need to challenge ourselves and get out of that, you know, typical notion. But just getting back to the issue of a calling, you know, the herd mentality kills, you know, people's dreams. You know, people don't want to take time to get to know themselves, to get to know what and I said, everybody has got something to give, no matter how big or no matter how small. And everything starts small. People always want to go big. Mr. Banks has indicated that when he started, it started with baby steps. And now look where he is, you know. And Nokutula, you mentioned about presenting at schools. We are available. Just send us an invite. I'm very passionate about going to, you know, encourage young people to study, to focus on books, to focus on reading, and to realize that the sky is the limit. Education is just a means. It's not necessarily an indication of success, but it can help you in terms of being, look, if Mr. Banks had not gone to school, he wouldn't even understand that data analytics. Am I right, Mr. Banks?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You had to get a grounding of sorts in order to get to where you are. So it propelled you in a way, and you took an interest in data analytics and etc. and look where you are now. And yes, we need to educate our communities. But again, I want to challenge each and everyone on this platform that responsibility lies with each and every one of you. Where you see a need, try your best to meet it. Even if it means seeing a girl who's pregnant on the street, calling her aside and saying, my daughter, tell me, how are you? What's happening? Are you at school? No. You know how many girls just how many girls just give up after falling pregnant because they're convinced it's the end of the world. You know, even our stories, sometimes we don't want to share our stories and where we are coming from. I know a lot of people who had children at a young age, but they didn't let that get them down. But they don't talk about it. We don't talk about our failures. All of us have failed in life. We don't talk about this is where I'm coming from or this is the circumstances I was born in. Mr. Banks talked about how he defied the odds, the circumstances he was born in. I know people that were born in, one thing you don't have control over is where you are born. I could have been born in Bangladesh. I could have been born, I don't know, in Samoa or somewhere there. I don't have control over where I'm born, but I do have control over where I'm going and my destiny, 100%. And it's very important for us to empower people and let them know that we didn't just come up like that. There are building blocks. There are things that we had to go through, challenges, and we can talk about challenges some other time about what I've been through as an African woman, trying to fit into spaces where they are traditionally meant for white males. It's not easy. But you know what? You don't let it get you down. And that's the thing. We need to give others hope. We were given hope either by somebody or something, and we have to also make sure that we give others hope. And so I could go on and on. Role models. Mr. Banks is a perfect role model. We need more role models like him, people who have taken the initiative and have really come out on top. Teboho, hey, you asked me about now I'm jumping now, Tembi, because I can feel you looking at me, even though I don't see your face. I'm going to be very quick around the issue of it. I'm going to jump now. I'm not going to talk about other issues you raised, but I'm going to talk about expropriation without compensation. That's a very emotive issue. It's emotive, it's sensitive. I don't know how to, and it's been so charged right from the public hearings. I mean, We were in, I was in Tayando, I was everywhere. We've traveled the breadth of this country just listening to people. And it's such a sore spot. And the fact remains that a lot went wrong. You know, a lot has gone wrong around land reform. And I think an argument that is made by the DA is that there is no need to amend the Constitution. The Constitution is fine the way it is. The problem was the land reform program of government. It was rigged by corruption. There were issues around bad administration, and there was no political will. Had there been a political will to actually ensure that there's land reform, then there would be no need now to actually amend the Constitution. And the Constitution, as it is, it allows for expropriation, because there's a legal argument that expropriation, compensation doesn't always have to amount to money, quantify in terms of it's not always monetary. It can be nil compensation, for example. So it's a very emotive and a very sensitive issue. And I do agree. I heard someone say that, but how can you give people land when they don't know how to work the land? And that is the problem that we are likely to face if land is expropriated. Some people will not know how to first of all, they will not even have the resources, the equipment and the tools and the implements to actually work that land, because farming is a very labor-intensive, how can I say, a task, and one that you refine over time. So you just take someone and you give them land. What will they do with the land? And to be honest with you, some people actually said, so not everybody wants land. Let me just end there because the work of the committee is ongoing. And I've tried to, it's really, and it came to a point where even people would address each other directly, and I'm talking about blacks and whites, and you could see that this is something that if we don't handle with care, it will not only threaten our security as a country, but will also, threaten food security. Because what happens now if we give land to people who cannot work the land? That means the land will not be productive, So in the economy as well, the people were saying it's going to scare away investors. And there are questions that are not resolved. Like, okay, so if you take land from someone that has taken out a loan for that land, what happens to the loan? Does the person continue paying for that land, even though they don't possess the land? Questions like, some people were even saying, we've used this land as collateral. So what happens then? So banks are also have to be involved in this, but they are very quiet on the matter. But it's the reality. There are so many unanswered questions, and I'm afraid sometimes that if we don't handle it with the care and the delicacy that it deserves, it can be detrimental to our economy. I mean, you only have to look next door to Zimbabwe. Those people have been reduced to economic refugees. Commodities, your basic commodities such as your bread, your sugar, they are expensive. Food security is a problem there. So we have to be very careful because we don't want another Zimbabwe on our hands, truly speaking. We've come far as a country.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, I think we had our first session was actually about issues of land, and we invited Professor Levin, the special master for labor tenants. We could not finish because there was quite a lot. I think we agreed that we will arrange another session, and now that we are aware that we are also involved, we will actually invite you again. But allow me to Is there anything else maybe before I close that you would want to say, which I might have closed you out? Because I know this is quite a sensitive issue, and you indicated when we invite you that you wouldn't want to speak on behalf of Parliament. And we're trying to avoid that as much as you'd like to respond to some of the issues. I believe the participant will appreciate the fact that you did respond to that. Anything that I might have closed you out that you would have wanted to say, both yourself and Mr. Banks?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, and just I'm humbled that and the fact that you are on this platform, and really please keep it up. It's very important that we have these honest and frank conversations, and tell each other the truth about what's really going on in our country, and hopefully even help one another come up with solutions. So I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Banks?
Thank you for the platform. It was fruitful. I learned so much from Dr. Mimmy. I'm looking forward to learn more. Yeah, I think it's time now to learn more about our government, learn where we can contribute solution to the modern day growth. I just feel like yes, the public need to be informed, and we need to contribute to educate. But the new way now is digital, and digital does not have a master, does not have people who have already monopolized it. And through empowering companies, new companies as well. Thank you so much for the platform.
Thank you. Dr. Gondwe, I already have provided a solution. Mr. Banks can assist him in Parliament if you allow him to.
100%. I'm 100% keen.
This is actually the public-private partnership kind of a situation. I've already checked the numbers between the two of you, so
yeah, I got it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can take it from there. But I believe that he can be a very big solution in terms of issues relating to outcome assessment, how the services are delivered to the people. That is his expertise. I spoke to him, I think, almost for 3 hours, and we're engaging, and we're coming up with ideas, and whether they are flying or not, but the bottom line is the way engagements that I realized that this guy is actually loaded in terms of information that can assist government and even our people, and also to educate all of us on how we can get out of being employed and become employers, because I think that's what we're supposed to move towards. But other than that,
sorry, my dear, to interrupt. There's a comment here from Mr. Mhlongo.
It's
Miss Mhlongo.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Mhlongo, who says there is no empirical evidence to suggest that grants make people lazy.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, I agree.
She's a lawyer in learning, so
yes, I
if
agree.
possible, you can take her under your wings too.
I would appreciate that. I'm just so sad that I only joined the meeting later. Yes. But when I came in, you were speaking about the grants, and it's something that I've been dealing with quite heavily, and it's become something that's so close to my heart, and so I get extremely sensitive. And when people speak about grants, yes.
I do agree that there is no look. This was just a comment that Mr. Banks made, that and this is very what people must understand. We are sharing our personal perspective. You don't have to agree with what any of us say. It's the way we look at things. And so I want to find out from you, Ms. Mhlongo, do you think the grant system is sustainable? We were just talking about the fact that we think it's important to wean people out of the grant system, because I think I was explaining to them that our fiscus is under enormous pressure. there are budget cuts right across departments, including social development. I'm wondering, do you share the sentiment that at some point we have to wean some of our people out of the grant system? Because in some countries you find that it's only the elderly and children that are orphaned or don't have stable homes that receive the grants. So and the disabled, it's very selective, and in the criteria they scrutinize who actually has access to the grant.
Absolutely.
They make sure that you can't look, you aren't able to find employment and the like, and you're not able to work even if you do find employment, etc. So I don't know if you share that sentiment. And I think you came in at the tail end and you probably thought, oh yeah, we're busy trying to say that grants make people idea we were not.
Yes, I echo your sentiments to a certain extent, particularly relating to the fact that there are many conditions that have been put in place to exclude a large number of people. Whether or not our current grant system is sustainable, no, it is not. And that is because it excludes a large portion of the population, particularly people between the ages of 18 and 59. And what we are currently calling for is for the government to implement a universal basic income grant, which will aid those people, the working class, able-bodied people, to help themselves, to empower themselves, whether it be through education, whether it be through entrepreneurship, or actually going out and participating in the market as well, which is a very important factor. We need more people to participate in the market so we can increase the GDP. So the sustainability part of it is, to me, is how much are you giving people? Are you giving people an amount that is above the poverty line, or are you giving people the amount that is below? If we look at the current SDR grants, for instance, the 350, that does not even it doesn't even reach the lower level of the poverty line. It makes it very difficult for people to sustain themselves and their families. So if there's anything, it creates a burden for the government. But if you're able to implement or to give an amount that is above a particular poverty line, people can't do that for themselves. And what we're seeing now is that there's a lot of information, and we have received a lot of pushback from the National Treasury to say we can't afford this because we're proposing a basic income grant of 1,260, which is the upper bound poverty line. National Treasury has said that is not, we can't afford that. But we have provided solutions to say there are a number of ways, a number of sources which can finance this grant. So it's just a matter of being open to receiving that information and testing it out.
Curiosity, sorry to cut you. What ways were you proposing?
The biggest source was the wealth taxes.
Through what?
Wealth taxes.
Okay, so you just increase the tax, that the wealthy pay. Is that it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, and then
can I comment also? This model is crazy. I'm from econometrics, and I know maybe in law there is no data to prove it, but I can tell you now, it's not that the sample size was not collected does not mean it's not there. The evidence is there. And to be honest with you, as soon as you start taking from tax, you're breaking down those who are working, and alternatively, you reduce you are marginalizing those who are working. Eventually, they will stop working also and depend on the same tax. So the idea is to reduce dependency, because these guys are sourcing from the same income that's coming from 40% on tax, coming from one person. If I'm earning 100,000 now, 40,000 have to leave me. So there's so much, that's already so much. As soon as you go above 51%, econometrically in data, that model is not gonna be sustainable. And that's why a lot of large corporations are not here. That's why a lot of them left. And the more you take more taxes from guys who are working and companies that are trying to implement growth, because the source of growth is private companies. As soon as you start taking more from these guys, you are taking them away. You are telling me I should go to Mauritius, I should go to Dubai and run my company.
Tax havens, yeah.
But besides that, Sorry, besides that, as we close, because it's a pity.
Yes.
This is something
Yes, I'm so
that
sorry.
we're gonna have a topic on, and I'm gonna inform you on time so that we can be able to engage. But one of the things that we discussed prior to you, joining, was that we are developing a community that is reliant, that is reliant on government. They do not have to work. They just stand in a queue and receive this money. And some of them take the very same money and buy very expensive sneakers and do hair. And you don't even see the fact that they need. Some of them are actually already working, but the fact that they are working for government, some actually work for government and they are getting the very same grant, which is our tax. I mean, they take tax from some of us, or almost all of those who are working. And our discussion was actually to say, what is it that we can do for the very same public to stop too much depending on the public? If we increase that money, it means we are saying to them, relax, just sit down. Everybody who's paying tax is going to give you the money for you to get and buy drugs and buy expensive shoes, some of whom don't even buy food, So what is it that we can do? And we discussed at length about active citizenry, about how we can educate each other to make sure that those who are receiving the very same grant are actually looking at ways in which they can use the very same money to buy some food. I know of people who are currently university students and they use some of the money for NSFAS to start buying fruits and sit in front of the university entrance and sell the same fruits in order for them to have money. So we want to find a way in which we can share this information with a large number of people because of social media and YouTube, to be able to realize that it doesn't have to be you having a card-carrying member of a political party for you to be able to get a tender. That's when you will say that I've got a decent job. Or you don't have to apply so many times to government, which is trying to cut, the number of employees within government. You don't have to stand in a queue. And even if you do, find a way in which you can buy a crate of eggs, boil them, stand somewhere, sell those eggs. They say when you sell a crate of eggs, you can make more than 350 if you sell it for, I don't know how much, 5 rand each, if I'm not mistaken. There are people who have proven to me that over and above you, somebody was saying to me, I actually earn more than you by me just going and sell eggs every day at Park Station. And I didn't believe until they prove it to me. So the idea is to find a way of generating this dependency. I mean, moving away from this dependency and making people, because what happens if government is no longer able to pay the trillions that they are borrowing from IMF? It means somebody is going to take over our country and we're no longer going to be able to lead it. So we need to find a way in which we create, information sessions like this, but, advocacy campaigns that says to the young people and everybody else, as much as you're standing in a queue, maybe you need to work for it. There's a river that is dirty and water is coming and we are drinking it. Why can't they go and clean? Then they're given the 350. They say Val Dam is quite dirty. Have there ever been people from Joburg who are taken there to go and clean in order to get 350? No, they wake up and put the white stuff on their faces and they go and end the 350 and buy more of those. We can go on and on and on, but I promise that we're gonna have a topic on this because I think we're gonna continue on this for some time, and we'll find a way of inviting people. And I believe the doctor will also be available to engage with us. Even Mr. Banks, I believe you are now resident guest in our platform. Thank you so much. Anything else? I was still saying, I see Doctor, you wanted to say anything, and then Mr. Banks, then we close. It's 7 o'clock. No, we've broken the record.
Nothing. Just to say thank you. It's just been so inspiring and humbling being on the platform. And I'm saying humbling because it's always a privilege to be able to engage with people, and people who have ideas and who have solutions, And that's why I asked Ms. Mhlongo, does she think it's sustainable? Because I needed, you know, I'm convinced it's not sustainable. And so, but you know what, we all have our own views and perceptions, and we may not always agree, but conversations like this are very important. And I've learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Banks?
I think here's a secret of how I won in business. To be honest, I hope I will touch somebody. As soon as you ask somebody for an opportunity, you appear as a beggar. Everybody will treat you like a beggar. If I had to call PPC and say, I'm looking to help you with data science, they wouldn't put me on at all. I'm a beggar, you know? But what I had to do, I realized I have to improve my value in the market. And I started talking and telling my story on LinkedIn. Started improving my story. As soon as I started going in, these guys realized this kid, we need to be around in some way. There's actually one of the company called Saint-Gobain, is a big company from France. These guys are one of my largest clients in the books as well. Their mindset when I added them as my client, they said, hey, we have to get this kid in now in March before he becomes number one, top one. And I'm like, that was the game plan, because now it's easier for me to talk to these guys in business level without me proving myself. So if you are thinking of implementing or starting a business, let's go out there and improve our value. And this model, I adapted it from media, basically. When you see artists getting booked, that's a business. They should have been calling all these promoters to book them, but they put out content that makes them attractive and people start booking them. That model is the same model that Nike uses or any other large corporation in the business. You have to be known and you have to be attractive to start getting business. Our problems is Black business. We are not known. Mr. What Jeff Foundation or whatever trading is not known. So we need to build our names. We need to build our business name, brands to be attractive so we can compete in the market. But to talk about anything else, I'll be available to be part of anything Parliament. I'm ready. But I love the platform. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. For the first time, we have sat in this platform for 3 hours. It means this was like huge, and there's more that we can actually talk about. So thank you so very much. I believe that people have actually learned a lot, and we will, like we always say, we request people to submit inputs on how we can improve or on how we can contribute to how government can improve things. I chose this kind of a platform because I realized as a junior official within an organization, my ideas may not necessarily all be taken, but I can be able to make a difference without me being part of my employer's bureaucratic approach, which is the public service. And I think my exposure in government actually made me understand and identify things that actually need to be done differently. But if you're not at specific positions in leadership, you might be blocked on how these things can be done, but it doesn't actually block you from doing things outside in the public, which I'm currently doing. So as we speak, there are partnerships we are building with University of Limpopo for them to have student lawyers and political science students to be part of teaching people at rural areas about the Bill of Rights, the constitutional values and principles, something that I am actually passionate about after having been exposed at my work. And also now with the role the public can play, it's something that I'm actually learning also. So every time I listen to people, I get to understand, oh, okay, this is how it can be done. Oh, this is how it can be done. So inputs will be really appreciated on how this thing can be grown, but there's so much reception. I was getting WhatsApp messages that we can't connect because of, weather and so forth. I'm like, okay, fine, you'll get the recording. So yeah, thank you so very much. I think I can talk until the next hour, but thank you so very much for the opportunity and for the inputs. We really appreciate. You won't believe that both the speakers, I've never met them in person. I only spoke to them over the phone, or I have spoken to them online and we have engaged, but I appreciate the fact that you trusted me and come and engage in this platform. You're actually now one of our resident guests. We're gonna bounce ideas with you and you'll tell us how you can assist. And to everybody who stayed on and those that have left, thank you so very much for the opportunity to engage. This is the end of our session. We'll actually share with you all the wins and all the stuff that we have found and actually harvest out of this engagement. One thing that stands out is that now we know that we can report to the portfolio committees if there are issues or if there are solutions that we need to share. Now we also know that you don't necessarily need to have a business plan for you to start a business. You can actually start. Just have to know yourself, believe in yourself, be an activist. So let's go out and be activists and make sure that we make a difference in our communities. Doctor, I'm going to send you ideas and things that have been done that I think government can replicate, which are currently working and that have worked, which are not necessarily being replicated. And I think others can actually share with me. There's a content advisor of Parliament, of one of the portfolio committees also. So can see how much I'm connected. But thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Tembi, for having
Bye-bye.
us.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
Tembi.
Bye.
Julius.
Bye, Mikateko.